Welcome in. I cannot believe we are wrapping up week 10 tonight. Bills versus Broncos. But before we get to that, we're going to help you get ahead of the game. Get your waiver wire nonsense out of the way because that's what we like to do. Luckily, if you have any of the team or players from the Falcons, Colts, Patriots, or Saints, you don't have to worry about them this week. They are on bye. So, which isn't a whole lot of people. You're not really worried about any of them. I can't name one that you're really.
Who do I start over Mac Jones? I don't know what to do.
Exactly. I mean,
Bijan.
Yeah, Bijan maybe. He had his first real dominant week this week.
Yeah, some good running backs.
Good. Pittman's been okay.
Yeah, JT, Ramondre, Kamara. So good running backs, actually. I'd say.
I mean, even Kamara didn't struggle through this week. He didn't get the targets he was used to. Yeah. But yeah, I guess you are kind of missing running backs. Stevenson hadn't been doing a whole lot. Bijan's been struggling, but yeah, Taylor's finally taken back control of that backfield. But as always, Mike Burland's here with me. How you doing, Mike?
Yep, good, doing well. Yeah, I can't believe I say it every week, but NFL season flies by. It really does.
Yep, second by second, game by game. We had a good one yesterday. Chargers almost had a shot, but can't stop anybody from scoring, so that always hurts us.
Yeah, that's the Chargers' way. There's the last team with the ball, so Lions had it
every time. But QJ looked good. Finally got into the end zone. About time.
Yep.
All right. We're stop yappering. We'll get into quarterbacks because that's what you guys are really here for. First streamer I actually really enjoy. And is on a new team, has really stepped it up. Josh Dobbs, 38.9% rostered, way too available, traded 2 weeks ago to the Vikings. Kieran Hall goes down. He steps in and immediately has impact. This week, took on the Saints after a full week of practice, torched them with 268 yards and a touchdown. Also added 44 rushing yards. Oh, he scored that way too. So, he put up 24.12 fantasy points, and last week he put up 24.92 with even fewer reps in even time playing. So, I forgot to mention, he's QB7 on the year. So, don't know why he's still available. Should be picking him up. At this point, I'm more than willing to let go of Trevor Lawrence. So, if that's somebody that you were looking at, if I'm trying to think of, I guess maybe Derek Carr was another one you've been streaming, pick up Josh Dobbs.
Yeah.
So that's
I think that's my favorite pick. I think I was trying to think back when we first mentioned Josh Dobbs on the show. I want to say it was week 4 or 5, maybe, and just saying hey, he's running the ball, as long as he does that, he doesn't. Yeah, and I think since week 2, he's on pace for 700 yards rushing, second most rushing yards by a quarterback this season. Yeah, I definitely dropped Lawrence for him. I'm trying to think of other Derek Carr, Stafford, all these guys he gets. I think you mentioned it, Justin Jefferson back. So yeah, that's my favorite one by far. A couple other ones here.
I do have a bigger question overall.
Four is when we first brought it up, though. FYI.
Okay.
Just not fantasy relevant, but just overall in general. Because I feel like, especially at quarterback this week, you don't really need a lot of streamers. So Josh Dobbs has been playing really well in the 2 games he's been there for Minnesota, right? So if they have a decent finish to the year with Dobbs, who would quite obviously be a cheaper option. Kirk Cousins is on the last year of his $35 million deal. If they even sniff the playoffs with Dobbs at quarterback, what happens to Kirk Cousins? Does that just throw out everything he's done? Does this just prove he's a system QB? Or does he end up in somewhere West Coast?
Oh, you think West Coast? I thought he might actually end up in Atlanta.
I always think San Francisco. I will continue to say San Francisco is a quarterback away from the Super Bowl until they actually get that quarterback. No offense to Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I mean, Cousins is clear step up above Purdy. I mean,
right,
just because he's shown it over many a year, and that O-line continues. He continues to get behind a better O-line every year that he's played, it seems like. And yeah, it would be hard not to move on depending on what you could get in compensation for the Vikings. I mean, because he has to be right.
Well,
Yeah.
no, his contract is up this year. This was the last year of his deal.
Oh wow.
So he's a free agent in the offseason. They would have to re-sign him. And it's going to be cheaper to sign Dobbs than to sign Cousins. So maybe they go the Geno Smith route. Where like they got rid of Russell Wilson, got Geno Smith on the cheap in Seattle, and now all of a sudden they're still competitive without him. Maybe Minnesota does something similar.
Yeah, I could see it. I think if I think they would have to like make the playoffs and look competitive, not necessarily win, but if they just get like dominated by another team, the Lions or something, and there was just like it's a clear gap between
I don't know. Their
Dobbs
defense
and,
is atrocious though, so I feel like it would have to be. It would have to be that like Dobbs threw 3 picks or something in the playoff game.
Yeah, and they didn't put up any fight offensively, whether it was.
But like Cousins maybe going back to Washington. Would that do anything? Maybe Pittsburgh?
Denver? No, I don't know.
Yeah, they're paying so much money to Russ is the problem. I don't know how they get out of that with any kind of ease.
Nope. Again,
I don't know. Just I derailed it. It was just an interesting thought to me, seeing what Dobbs is doing so far in that system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're kind of looking at, so if you're looking at teams that could actually use it, it'd be Falcons, maybe the Panthers. Granted, I know they have Bryce Young, but maybe having somebody there
it would be too soon. They just spent the first overall pick on him, and they're basically going to gift wrap the number 1 pick to the Bears this season because they wanted to get Bryce Young. So
maybe Giants.
That would be difficult. The Giants committed so much money to Daniel Jones, and it's like all committed, guaranteed. So I don't see how they do that. Yeah. Maybe if Stafford's done, the Rams.
Yeah,
that
could be an interesting one. What about the Raiders?
Yeah.
This is why I'm thinking West Coast, because that's where all the QB problems are.
Yeah.
Let's see.
What about the Steelers and they get out of Kenny Pickett? I don't think.
Yeah, that's why I brought up the Steelers earlier. I think with their defense, if they had a legitimate offense to go with it, they spent a first-round pick on Pickett, but it was like 25 overall, I think, something like that.
Yeah,
and it was a couple years ago, so he's had time, like, to prove that he's not the guy.
What about the Jags?
No, not with Lawrence. No.
Why?
Although I think
Lawrence is getting it done. Like,
I think he is overrated. Honestly, I do, but.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think he's not getting it done. They came into this weekend with the number 1 seed in the AFC, so it's hard to say he's not getting the job done. He's doing what he's asked. He's not putting up flashy numbers, but he's also not losing them games.
Yeah, I think expectations.
I think Texans are fine. I think the Titans like what they've found in Levis.
Packers?
I don't know.
They're in purgatory.
Like, they would love to stick it to the Vikings and get Kirk Cousins, I'm sure. But, like, we talked about this in the offseason. Jordan Love, you had to have at least a year of seeing what the hell you've got because he's going to be a free agent. So then do you move on already and go for the aging vet? Because I feel like if you go for the aging veteran QB, you're saying we're ready to win now. And the rest of that roster, I don't think they're ready to win anytime soon.
Yeah. I mean, Seattle, they can get out of Geno's contract after next year. If he I know he looked good yesterday, but if he hasn't looked that good until yesterday, and it was against the Commanders, so.
Yeah, he's done what has been asked of him. I think you can't fault him for that.
What about the Bucks?
Yeah, that's another good one. Like, their issue, it's been really weird because Baker Mayfield has played great for them this season, but they're going to lose Mike Evans because they didn't want to extend him. You're paying Godwin a lot of money, and your biggest issue is the defense can't stop anybody. So, adding Kirk Cousins to that just makes the Vikings Minnesota South with Tampa down there. That's all you'd be doing. No defense and Kirk Cousins throwing to good weapons.
Yeah.
I think Atlanta would probably be the most obvious one that we've talked about.
I think so. It's going to depend on what coach goes in there if Arthur Smith is no longer there.
Please, God. Please.
Yeah, because the weapons there are amazing. They have a solid enough defense that continues to at least put up a fight.
Yep.
And they're able to run the ball. I mean, even though they're not using their first round pick, whatever.
And they don't have to pay any of those weapons for another year or two. So
yeah. Hey, Paulo, welcome in.
All right, that was it. I just wanted to have that brief discussion about the Kirk Cousins legacy here, and we can get back on track.
All right, that means that you need to give your picks for quarterback after I give since I give Josh Dobbs. You're up.
Josh Dobbs is definitely my number one. He's my number one. Russell Wilson, if he's a little bit over the 50% threshold, but if he's out there, you can pick him up before this week, kind of get ahead of it. He's averaged over 17 points per game this year. He gets the Vikings in week 11, so not terrible, not great. They're not the best defense. They're better. They're definitely better, but than last year and what we thought going into this year. You know, I didn't write him down, but if Baker is still around that 50, 60%, again, like Steve's been mentioning him again, seems like since like week 2 or 3 or whenever buys were starting up, and he's been really good. You know, another good game yesterday where I think it'll be 3 straight 20-point games for 6 point per passing touchdown. So maybe 4 straight. So yeah, he's been really good. And then if you're looking more long term and want to take care of it now, I guess like a Derek Carr, Jameis Winston, we just don't know the injury situation there, which is kind of the issue. I wouldn't mind riding the roller coaster that is Jameis Winston if I didn't have a better option, just because you know they play the Falcons in week 12, not week 11. They're on a bye, but week 12. So, and then Jameis is always fun to not watch if you're starting him, but just check the score afterwards and you see, okay, I got 3 touchdowns and 3 picks, but I'll take it. So, that's always an option.
Yeah, an absolutely terrifying one. But I will say, I was so happy that Carr went out because, man, did Chris Olave need Winston in there. Yeah. I don't know what it is between those two. They need to get that sorted out because he absolutely is sucking when it comes to moving that ball at all. So,
yeah. Well, Winston just doesn't care. He just throws it up. He has.
Well, and Olave comes down with it. Like, why weren't you doing that already? That's your main weapon. Throw it to him. Get it to that guy. Like, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, 100%.
But okay, quarterbacks out of the way. Moving to running backs. A name very familiar again. Tony Gibson, 43.7% rostered. Even with Samuel's back this week, saw good usage. One of his better games, actually. So, past 3 games, has seen 5+ targets, has only dropped 1. He's only had 1 drop over the past 3 weeks. He also is getting the carries, and, you know, it's just impressive. So, week 7, he started off slow, had the Giants, 5.1 fantasy points. Week 8 versus the Eagles, 9.2 fantasy points. Week 9 versus Patriots, 12.6 fantasy points. This past week versus the Seahawks, part of the reason I was so high on Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson going into this week, 16.5 fantasy points. Had 4 carries for 13 yards, not great. However, 5 receptions, 50 yards, and a touchdown. So, absolutely loved it. Think that moving forward, he can. I think I was actually talking to Neil, and Neil's like, this is the time when they realize that, we can use our running backs to throw to for their Commanders, and it seems that has been the case. Clearly, the last 2 weeks, specifically, last 3 weeks, I guess, specifically, with the 5 receptions each week. So, but that's more of a basic play. I actually really like your picks, so let's talk about them.
Yeah, and just real quick on Gibson. I think Sam Howell's leading the NFL in passing yards, and I think McLaurin's the only one that's on pace for like 1,000 yards this year, or just about 1,000. So that means a lot of it's going to Logan Thomas, the running backs and stuff like that. So I like that for sure, especially in PPR. I'm going to go a little out of order than what I wrote. Devin Singletary, just under that 50%. I think he had a huge game, 30 carries. Finally, someone gave him more than 15 carries in a game or something. We've been kind of wanting to see it. He's always had a high yards per carry, average 5 yards per carry in this game. I think it's just I want a piece of this offense, whether it's the receivers, the tight end, the quarterback, running back. We said no. We kind of dismissed it last week, but we finally saw them have a good game, and I just feel like, how do you go away from that? You beat the Bengals. Part of the reason was because of Devin Singletary, and how do you go away with that from that, even if Dameon Pierce comes back? So I really like Devin Singletary. Kind of rest the season. So it could be they could go back to a 50-50 split, or I just think Singletary is going to get the chance for it to be his backfield at least for another game. So he's one I'm targeting.
It's that whole classic San Francisco running back by committee with D'Amico Ryans being there. Mm-hmm. We had this whole debate before about San Francisco running backs. How would CMC do there? Was he going to actually get the whole job, or was he going to be in a committee? And he was a guy good enough to get the whole job, and you see what that does. It's the same thing here, because they're running a very similar offense with Houston, where they've got two guys splitting the workload, both virtually useless when they're in there together, sharing the workload. But when one guy has it all to himself, you definitely want to be starting that guy. So if Pierce is out, I'm all aboard the Singletary train. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he's got to miss the game.
Week 9, and I got absolutely torched on it because he did nothing. So it's really playing with fire when you get to that point.
Yeah, it's tough. He definitely needs to be, if he's out there, you definitely need to pick him up, just at least to see. But yeah, it is weird for it looked like Houston could not run the ball at all, and then it just comes out of nowhere. So
and as we kind of every week is their O-line continues to get healthier.
Yeah,
I think that is also helping, and them working together to open more up.
And teams are going to focus on not letting Stroud beat him, who's on pace to throw like 5,000 yards. So it should open up things for the running game as well. So just want a piece of that offense for sure, which I never thought I'd be saying about Houston, at least this year. Keaton Mitchell, we mentioned last week, he didn't get picked up as much as I thought he would, only 23.3%. I understand why. Yeah, I think he only had 3 touches, but he had 70 yards and a touchdown. I just don't understand.
He played 11 snaps.
Yeah, it's definitely a 3-headed monster. Gus Edwards is not going anywhere. I hope they take a little bit from Justice Hill and give it more to Keaton Mitchell. Give this guy 8 to 10 touches, and he could be very valuable to your team. And then
his first 2 touches included a breakaway run, and then for 30 yards, and then he had a catch for 35 yards and a touchdown or something.
And then they gave him one more touch after that. It's what are you doing? Give him more. And it just feels like, again, how do you get away with it, get away from it type of situation, which, we've seen unfold numerous times this year. So hopefully they get him more involved. Definitely think he needs to be added just because we see the potential. Ty Chandler. Yeah,
the issue with him is the fact that, again, with a lot of rookie running backs, pass blocking. At one point, he actually led to Jackson getting sacked because there was nobody for him to block, so he ran in front of him. Not a great move.
I think he dropped a touchdown too, right? Didn't he drop one in the end zone?
Yeah, dropped a touchdown.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put this comment up since you're about to get into it anyway. Our guy, Dr. Squatch.
Hey. All right. Now you've been discussing already. I've got Madison feeling fairly tempted to drop some fab on Ty Chandler this week. Probably.
I would.
Concussion is likely out.
Yeah. And assuming you've been starting Madison and if you need a running back to start, Chandler should just fill right in. So it's going to be a little frustrating when they're both there. I don't know if you're going to want to start either one, but even before Madison got injured, Ty Chandler was involved. And what if he just looks really good, and he just takes the job? You get Wally pipped and your job's gone because Ty Chandler comes in. He has some explosiveness to him. I thought he was going to be a thing before, this year, before they went and got Cam Akers. And so what if he just has a monster game and he just takes over? So I definitely would, just to protect yourself at the very least, and to have a start this week. I think it's a good spot start. So, and then the guys we've always been mentioning, the handcuffs, the Charbonnets, Tajay Spears, Kenneth Gainwell, Rico Dowdle. So Lots of guys there.
We'll bring it up because it's the third week now. Zach Charbonnet has outsnapped Walker. So he's not doing a whole lot with it, but it's just the fact that he's out there more. Again, more for the passing portion. He's completely overtaken DJ Dallas, which no surprise there, but something to keep an eye on. Definitely worth an ad for sure, because if Walker continues to be banged up like he has been, it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Get out of running back into wide receiver. No surprise. I'm still going to keep mentioning his name, even though he is going on bye. Demario Douglas, 27.2% rostered. Continues to show up. Even this week, he was hurt. A lot of doubt around him. Made me nervous, but put up 14.4 fantasy points. Week before versus Commanders, 10.5. I mean, dude is a PPR machine. He's getting you those double-digit weeks and isn't scoring. So even without scoring, he's putting up these double-digit weeks where if he scores, it's just going to be even better. Like you're getting that sweetener of getting closer to that 17, 20 point every week. And then the thing that continues to surprise me is Noah Brown, 27% rostered. The Texans wide receivers have this issue where they're getting hurt, but all of them have some kind of value. So Woods was out, Brown stepped in. This week Collins was out, so he moved from the slot to the outside and had a massive game. He has 2 games with over 100 yards now. The past 2 weeks versus the Bucks last week, 27.3. This week, 24.2 fantasy points. Both weeks over 150 yards, and it's just insane how the fact that him, Cooper, and Lamb were all on the same team in Dallas is blowing my mind. I don't understand. Like, I feel like he has to supplant Robert Woods at this point just because of his Swiss Army knife kind of ability. Like he could fit anywhere and do anything. It's incredible.
Yeah, it is. It's just so hard. Like, I'm never going to feel comfortable starting him, but you know, when the play breaks down, CJ Stroud looks for Noah Brown. So whatever he does right, he gets open when the play breaks down. And yeah, we mentioned it. CJ Stroud's on pace for like 5,000 yards passing. So you could easily have 3 receivers here. And hopefully, even when Nico Collins comes back, that Noah Brown just kind of takes over the Robert Woods role or his position. Still tough to see, but he has to be rostered at this point. He can't just pass up over 300 yards in 2 weeks, for sure. And I like the Demario Douglas one. That's a good point of guys potentially being dropped. Like Josh Downs is another one that comes to mind. Could be dropped. Colts going on by. Yep. Rasheed Rice.
I don't know if he's available, but he could have been dropped last week because the Chiefs were on by. Now the name of 4.
I'm going to ask you a selfish start sit question. Ready?
Go for it.
So this week in my main dynasty league, my wide receivers are Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, and Cooper Kupp. So I had Hill and Kupp on the bye this week. So I picked up Noah Brown and slotted him in to one of my receiver spots. But now going forward with what he's done the last 2 weeks, if Nico is still banged up, Am I really playing Brown over Cooper Kupp?
You might have to. I mean, if it continues to not be
Stafford is supposed to be back, so that may help it, but it's scary, man. It's scary times out here.
No, for sure. I got to go Cooper Kupp still, unless it's...
All right. Want to make sure.
Yeah.
I'm not.
That's the heat check, right? Uh-huh.
Yeah. I just can't.
I think so.
Can't bring myself to do it. So,
Aaron coming in 3-player keeper, full PPR. Hawk Dell third for it's a trade. Keenan Allen in 5th. So he's getting rid of golly.
Yeah, so he's getting Keenan Allen. We were kind of talking about this before we went live. The only problem is with the keeper stuff. Don't play in any, so I don't the values of the rounds and stuff like that. But if I'm getting Keenan Allen this year, like I want that, and he has McBride so he can sacrifice Hawkinson a little bit.
I just don't want to get rid of Dell right now.
I know.
Like, I feel like both of those are upgrades. I'd be playing McBride and Hawk in my flex and tight end, and then rolling out Dell and be just set with it, because I think that actually outscores Keenan Allen pretty easily.
Yeah. My only worry is like, I agree about Dell. I really like him. I mean, obviously, I like Keenan Allen more than Dell.
I agree. A couple of really big weeks from him for sure. The past two.
Yeah.
So.
I get, and if you factor in the keeper part of it, I guess could be the tiebreaker to keep the younger Dell in the 3rd round pick. So, already lead the league in scoring. I mean, sounds like you have a pretty.
Solid, but I think Puka is going to be the one who suffers the most right now with the uncertainty at quarterback. I know Stafford's supposed to be back, but like, what is he going to look like? It's a UCL. Like, that's not an ideal situation. So.
Yeah. No, it's tough. I mean, it's just hard to not. I mean, Keenan Allen's on pace for like 1,600 yards and 100. He's leading the league in catches. So,
well, who else are you going to throw to if you're Herbert?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm fine with keeping Dell and Hawkinson. We kind of talked it out just because of the factoring the keeper aspect of it.
Well, my other thing for Hawkinson is Dobbs that's who he's looking to.
Oh yeah.
It's the same thing with McBride. Like, that was the reason I was so high on Hawk. Even they said he was going to be limited this week. I'm like, I still think he hits double-digit targets, and sure enough, did that 15. And put up 100 yards. So that's awesome for any kind of tight end.
What if Justin Jefferson takes? I know Dobbs always, since Arizona has been thrown to his tight ends, but he hasn't had a receiver like Justin Jefferson, So there is that aspect of it, and how many times are they going to throw? As much as we like Dobbs, like, he's not throwing. I don't think he has a game over 280 yards passing this year, so it's not like he's throwing a crazy amount. But I understand he loves. It
actually hurts Addison.
For sure.
Because, like you said, he hasn't had somebody like Jefferson, so they're very different roles, and.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Jefferson's definitely going to win that one out if I had to guess.
Yeah, I agree there.
All right, sorry. We'll get back into your wide receivers.
Yes, receivers. I like both yours. Again, if guys get dropped, Josh Downs is another one this week. He could bet. He had 2 kind of bad games coming off the injury. I think he still had 4 catches and played 25%. So I still like Downs. Jaden Reed is an interesting one. Rookie, again, he seems to be coming on a little bit. Double-digit points in 3 of the last 4 weeks. And no one's really standing out in that receiving corps for the Packers. So, I guess I'll also say Romeo Dobbs. I saw that he's at 40%. Probably should still be rostered. He's catching touchdowns at least. There's just not there's no volume there, unfortunately.
Doing more than Watson, that's for sure.
Yeah. So Jaden Reed's interesting to me, though, just because, again, no one stood out for that team. So he's a guy that you can potentially target. Quentin Johnston, we talked about him, actually had a good game for his standards, at least up until this point.
Had a touchdown.
It's just got a touchdown. He had more than the 4 targets because he had a 2 or 3 pass interference calls. One of them, at least one of them, he dropped. But those don't go down as targets.
Yeah, it was close, man. He held him just in time, and had he not, I think that would have been another touchdown for him, because that was a deep bomb that he easily would have beat that defender on.
Yeah. I know everyone's down on him, and but it's not. It's a little more abnormal, at least before a couple of years ago, for receivers to make an impact within their first 5 weeks, 6 weeks. It usually takes them maybe even a whole year to kind of get going, but at least in the NFL of 5 years ago. So, he's being put into this position, and he's going to be potentially the second target on this team until Palmer comes back. So, definitely think he deserves to be picked up. Michael Wilson's another one we talked about last week. Just Kyler, if he gets things going. I think Wilson's kind of the deep threat for this team a bit. So, if Kyler gets back, he's been a really good deep ball thrower, but needs to kind of get back into rhythm. So he's a guy to pay attention to. Brandon Cooks, I didn't check his roster percentage, but had a monster game, maybe one of his best games of his career. And that offense is just on fire right now. So I don't mind picking him up just to throw in my roster. And I hope I get, maybe more like a Gallup game that he had like 70 for a touchdown is a little more realistic. But if Cooks is out there for sure, Khalil Shakir is another guy I still really like. He's playing tonight. You can maybe scoop him up. He's getting, 4, 5, 6 targets as long as Dawson Knox is out. And, he had a solid game last week and they didn't even pass the ball that well. So could have a good game this week and people might be targeting him. So he might be a nice pickup now, just to kind of head of the whole waiver wire thing in just in case he goes off. And then last guy, Trenton Irwin, deep league, but he was replacing T. Higgins for the most part. T. Higgins probably not going to play this week. They play on Thursday. He could just catch a bomb like he did. He had a good game earlier this year too when T. Higgins was out. Yeah. So he's played well when Higgins is out because he's out there and they're going to throw the ball a lot. And Burrow's probably going to throw for over 300 yards. So, Trenton Irwin could catch a long bomb.
Yeah, Shakir, Irwin, and Brown were my streamers for this week, and I got real lucky with Irwin catching that long bomb for a touchdown. Just need Shakir to actually make sure he does something. To make me not sound like a complete idiot, but
yeah.
All right, we'll wrap it up. Get out of wide receivers and move into tight end because it's a wasteland for sure. Now all the good ones are being used like crazy. And so going to go with Luke Musgrave, 17% rostered. Again, you brought it up. Nobody's standing out for the Packers, but somehow Musgrave is getting just enough to be viable, and they're actually big plays. Like he's coming up with big plays. Week 9 versus the Rams put up 14.1 fantasy points, but he scored a touchdown, but 3 receptions, 51 yards. So almost 20 yards a catch. We'll go with that. This past week, 2 receptions, 64 yards. 32 yards per catch. Like he's coming up with those big plays, which is making him more viable. Which you also don't really see a whole lot with tight ends. It's more of a designed short area route, and that's not really what Musgrave's doing. They're kind of telling him to run down with his hand up, and loves finding him. So that in mind, and then going back again to my guy Taysom Hill. Burn me this week, but it's more because of the fact they couldn't get into the red zone. So no surprise there. Really hurt, but just how it goes. Just again, it's using every facet of the game. Caught a pass, had some rushing this week, just didn't have anything that was super. I mean, let's be honest, the Saints really didn't run the ball well this week at all. So thankfully, James came in and did some work, but still, if Jason's out there, you probably want him because the upside is just massive.
They could, to limit the craziness and the roller coaster of Jameis Winston, they could just use him at quarterback more, and especially in the red zone, they don't want Jameis turning the ball over and give it to Taysom Hill or something like that. So yeah, I still like Taysom Hill. I know, not on a bye, but I would still hold him. Pat Freiermuth coming off the IR maybe this week, so keep an eye on that. Obviously.
Well, and we just saw the other tight end for the Steelers actually do something, which was super impressive. I can't think of his name.
Yeah, I'm blanking as well, but Freiermuth was
Connor Hayward.
So we just saw. Obviously, he's highly regarded coming into the year. Pat Freiermuth, one of the better younger tight ends. So, he's had a bad year this year, injuries and other things. But he could get things going again. So, just a guy to pay attention to. Tyler Conklin coming off of back-to-back double-digit point weeks, 13 targets over the last 2 games. So, Zach Wilson is, I thought actually in a weird way it was one of his better games last night. I know they lost, but. It was, I don't know how they lost with one of Wilson's. At least like he looked okay as a passer, which is insane.
Saved my bacon because I had the Raiders D, so that pick is the only reason I won. last night.
Yeah.
So glad that happened for me.
Yeah, no, that's great. But yeah, Conklin's been doing well. We've seen him do well for stretches before, so he's another one. Not a great tight end week though for streamers.
Yeah, it's rough at this point. Hopefully you picked up one of them, hopefully you have McBride because we've talked about him forever, it feels like.
Yeah.
So and I think he just barely is over the 50% right now. So if he's still available, go and get him. But get out tight end, move into defenses. And at this point is when I start looking for the season. That in mind, just barely under the threshold right now, the Dolphins. Coming off a bye, they get the Rams, Jets, Commanders, Titans, and the Jets again. I'm excited for it. And before their bye, they put up 11 fantasy points versus the Eagles, 8 fantasy points for the Patriots, and 7 fantasy points versus the Chiefs. Feeling pretty good about it. I mean, that's somebody you can easily roll with, and Wilson turns it over, Stafford turns it over, clearly Howell turns it over, Levis turns it over. Like it's a great matchup moving forward. I'm not too worried about it. And again, the Dolphins are also getting healthy, so be interesting to see how other teams can contend. And good fact is that they've just been very competitive on the games that they've been in. Even when they're getting blown out, their defense has stepped up.
Yeah, I mean the other team has to throw the ball a lot. That leads to sacks and turnovers, So, yeah, I like that one. Another one for maybe season long is the Lions. They were dropped because they played the Chargers, but they get the Bears in week 11. Then they get the Packers, Saints, Bears, Broncos. Basically, I think, leading you up to the fantasy championship, I believe. Now, I will say Bears potentially getting Justin Fields back. And they looked really good the last 2 games before Fields got hurt. So maybe it's not as nice as a matchup, but I still think it's going to be a pretty good one. And I still think they're, even though they didn't look great yesterday, I still think they have a pretty good defense. The Lions, Commanders for the spot start, just because they play the Giants in week 11 and Tommy DeVito. Unless it doesn't even matter if it's Matt Barkley, but Daniel Jones. Is Daniel Jones on IR? I forget, but no, he's out for the year. That's right. He blew out his ACL. Right, yeah. I was thinking neck injury.
I was like, he just had his neck. He should be back, but no, he's done. That's right.
Yeah, no, he's been hurt a lot this year, but yeah, I mean, Giants they have no one except for Saquon, so and then the Jags, another team that was dropped a lot. I think the Jags this year have actually been pretty good. I'm seeing, this is not including week 10, but they were a top 10 defense. So still, that's going to go down because they played the 49ers and got blown out, but they get the Titans in week 11. So Titans are a pretty good team for defense.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, like I said, I think the Lions are your best one just because, again, season long, you're looking. I really like them. But I need to pivot because, like I said, I've been riding the Raiders the past 3 weeks. So it's time to get off that train. But outside of that, I think we're done. Let's go watch this game and see if it's any good. It'll be interesting to see for sure how this one ends up. But I'm guessing the Bills are going to be just fine. Not too worried about them. More curious to see if Russell Wilson provide some life into this game, and it'll be more enjoyable. With that in mind, I guess we'll get out of here. And I guess, as always, keep it the nonsense.